Good afternoon, everybody. Anthony Aniano here from RotoBaller Radio and RotoBaller.com with your Week 2 sleeper and value plays for your fantasy football season. Don't forget, everybody, head over to RotoBaller.com right now. Check out everything we have there. The main page, the premium package, you name it. RotoBaller.com, the place to be. Sign up for that premium pass using the promotional code ACES. Save at checkout and take advantage of all the great content there in that premium section, including the team sync tools, lineup optimizers, waiver wire reports, trades, Slack chat for anybody who's looking for online advice and help. It's all right there at rotoballer.com. Like and subscribe right here to the RotoBaller YouTube channel. And make sure you download the RotoBaller app. It's free. 6 sports, all in one, all in the palm of your hand. Premium and regular users as well. Their premium packages are available there, so take advantage. DFS, season-long players, whatever you are, rotoballer.com has you covered. Okay, so let's take a look now. Week 1 in the books. Week 2, full disclosure, recording this on Thursday, September 14th, before the Thursday night game. Usually this video gets published, edited, and published for Saturday morning, so we focus on the Saturday, Monday night games. Keep in mind there are 2 Monday night games as well. 3 times this season, 2 Monday night games. Week 2, Week 3, and Week 14. So enjoy that on your Monday evening. One game at 7:15, another one at 8:15 between ESPN and ABC. So let's dive into it. Our sleeper and value plays will start at the quarterback position. Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. For me, if you lost Aaron Rodgers, I think Jordan Love is the guy I'm starting. Some will disagree and say Brock Purdy, and I'm fine with Brock Purdy. I love Purdy. I actually, in leagues where I lost Aaron Rodgers in a 1 QB league, I replaced him with 2 quarterbacks. I replaced him with Purdy and Jordan Love. I think Brock Purdy is a safe floor quarterback. He's, depending on your 4 or 6 points per touchdown, a 15 to 20 point guy. You kind of saw what you saw last week. 220 yards and 2 TDs. He loves Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, all of it. So don't get me wrong, I love Purdy. I just think Jordan Love is a guy who could be a 300-yard a game QB. And you saw that a little bit last week. He went for 245 and 3 touchdowns. Romeo Doubs had a monster game. He didn't have Christian Watson. Hoping you get Christian Watson back in Week 2. Jordan Love currently on DraftKings for Week 2 at $5,500 after coming in with a 23-point fantasy performance in DraftKings scoring formats in Week 1. Now he goes against the Atlanta Falcons, whose defense played well, but I'm going to remind you, it was against Carolina, it was against the rookie quarterback, and Bryce Young went 20 of 38 for 146 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Love, although not many starts, has been in the league now a few years. He showed composure, good completion percentage in Week 1, 15 of 27. So it's a little more of a challenging matchup for the Atlanta Falcons defense than they had last week against Bryce Young in Carolina. It's a better receiving core with Doubs and Christian Watson. We don't know if Aaron Jones plays. A.J. Dillon might arguably be the best RB2 on any roster in the NFL. He steps in, and you really don't expect Green Bay's run game to miss much of a beat. And Luke Musgrave at tight end. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Now, let's take a look at a couple of running backs who would be classified as some sleeper and value plays. I put the hex on J.K. Dobbins last week. I mentioned him, and we know now his season is over. But I'm willing to take a flyer on his replacement. Now, you can argue it's Justice Hill. You can argue they mentioned Melvin Gordon in Baltimore. I'm putting my money on Gus Edwards. Now, I could be wrong. I could swing and miss totally on this. But Justice Hill had 8 carries for 9 yards. Now, he did get in the end zone twice, which has made him intriguing for people this week. However, after J.K. Dobbins went down, Gus Edwards did see more and more work, 8 carries for 32 yards. Now, on DraftKings, he's 5,300. So I'm willing to take a flyer on him in some DFS formats. If you don't want to use him in a season-long, if you have depth on your roster, you probably don't have to force Gus Edwards into your lineups. But you did add him. You want to wait and see who does officially get that workload. But in some DFS tournaments, Gus Edwards will be in some of mine. See if it hits. 5.2 fantasy points this week. Now, why do I like him? Well, he's going against the Cincinnati defense that looked terrible against the run last week against the Cleveland Browns. They allowed 142 rushing yards to the running back position alone. That's not even including the 30 or 40 or so yards that Deshaun Watson ran up and the touchdown Deshaun Watson ran against that Cincinnati defense. They allowed 4 catches for 21 yards to opposing running backs, a total of 20.3 fantasy points to the position. Remember, Nick Chubb had a monster game. Now, Edwards, Justice Hill, even maybe Mel Gordon could split that work, and thus that 142 yards does get divided up. Gus Edwards, I'm not worried about the touchdowns. Justice Hill did get 2 last week, but Gus Edwards has always had a nose for the end zone throughout his NFL career. My second sleeper value play at the running back position, New England Patriots running back Ezekiel Elliott, not Ramondre Stevenson. Now, don't get me wrong, I completely love Ramondre this week against the Miami Dolphins in that Sunday night matchup. But Zeke Elliott at 5,000 on DraftKings saw enough work last week to keep me intrigued as a give Ramondre Stevenson a break running back. They trusted Ezekiel Elliott with 12 touches last week, 7 carries for 29 yards, 5 receptions for 14 yards. Now 5,000 on DraftKings. Ramondre is 6,700 on DraftKings, and this is a Miami defense. Listen, that Miami Charger game was, without a doubt, I think the game of the week. Arguably, maybe with the Jets and Buffalo, a thriller to say the least. But as much as Tua and the Miami offense looked great, they didn't exactly slow down the Los Angeles Chargers. They allowed 208 rushing yards to opposing running backs. Austin Eckler had a monster performance before injuring his ankle. Then Josh Kelly comes in and goes for another 91 yards against the Miami Dolphins. The Charger running backs went for 2 touchdowns. They allowed 4 catches for 47 yards to running backs. I love Ramondre this week. He's in every lineup I could formulate against this Miami defense. And if you're looking for somebody low cost, Zeke Elliott at 5,000, they're willing to throw the ball to him. 5 catches last week. They gave him 7 carries, and if he gets near the goal line, there's a good chance Zeke Elliott gets into the end zone. Last week, Miami allowed 41.5 fantasy points to opposing running backs. I expect Zeke Elliott to be part of the mix this week for the New England Patriots. At the wide receiver position, Nico Collins of the Houston Texans against the Indianapolis Colts. Nico Collins had a nice game in week 1 with the rookie quarterback. He had 11 targets, love that number, 6 catches for 80 yards, 14 fantasy points in DK formats. Yet he's only at $4,800 this week. The Colts allowed 42.3 fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, with 2 touchdowns allowed to wide receivers in week 1. They're already 27th in the league against opposing wide receivers. Nico Collins was a target favorite for CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Expected to continue in week 2 against an Indianapolis secondary that was thrown upon pretty freely in week 1. My second sleeper and value play at wide receiver, Kendrick Bourne of the New England Patriots. Now, he was added across the board, but DraftKings still has him, I think, undervalued. He's 4,300 on DraftKings, coming off a 24.4 fantasy points performance. 6 catches, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns on 11 targets for Kendrick Bourne. Now, the matchup's a little bit tougher, but I'm not afraid of the Miami secondary. It should be another high-scoring game. Mac Jones is coming off a 300-yard game in week 1. Miami allowed 28.5 fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And here's a newsflash, guys. Kendrick Bourne is the New England Patriot wide receiver 1. Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster. Listen, Juju Smith-Schuster has been a mediocre fantasy player ever since he left Pittsburgh, or even before he left Pittsburgh, when Antonio Brown left Pittsburgh. Juju Smith-Schuster's best seasons were running alongside Antonio Brown. He was a stream option at best when he was with Kansas City, and that's what he's going to be this year with the New England Patriots. Kendrick Bourne, however, based on the volume, based on the targets, and only 4,300 on DraftKings, will be in some lineups of mine. And finally, sleeper value play at the tight end position. Honorable mention to Luke Musgrave against Atlanta. Atlanta allowed 6 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown to opposing tight ends last week. Musgrave had a majority of the snap share and was involved. However, he's not my first choice. My first choice at the tight end position in the sleeper and value play is Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. $4,400 on DraftKings. Last week, Five receptions, 44 yards on 7 targets, 9.4 points in DK formats. He's going against the Tampa defense that TJ Hawkinson and Josh Oliver combined for 11 catches and 67 yards. Minnesota exposed Tampa Bay's defense as being vulnerable to the tight end position. Even though I get it, Hawkinson's one of the best. Even Oliver was targeted and received 3 receptions in the game. They allowed 17.7 points to the tight end position, did the Tampa Bay Bucs defense. Okay, the second most in the league allowed to that position. So to recap, my sleeper and value plays for week 2 of the fantasy football season: at quarterback, Jordan Love, Green Bay Packers. Running backs, Gus Edwards, Baltimore Ravens, Ezekiel Elliott, New England Patriots. At the wide receiver position, Nico Collins of the Houston Texans and Kendrick Bourne of the New England Patriots. And finally, tight end Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. Folks, give me a follow on Twitter at @Aniano Fantasy. Like and subscribe right here to the RotoBaller YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.